Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sports Live with Steve and Justin. How are you, Justin?
I'm good, Steve. A little tired, but I'm good.
A little tired. Justin and I both cooked for a fundraiser yesterday, and he did a lot more than I did because he got there at 5 o'clock, and I got there at 7:30 a.m. But and he did a lot more than I did, and did an amazing job. We raised some money, which is always good, and you know
It was a good day. It was a lot of fun.
it was good that a lot of people had a good time, which, to be honest, always amazes me.
That's what's important. It keeps them coming back.
We have some people that complain the whole time and some people that enjoy themselves the whole time. So it was good. So, though it's Monday, and needless to say, maybe we'll skip over our picks for the moment, since they were total disasters.
Complete and total disasters.
But we still have one game for this week, being Monday. We still have the Bears and
Vikings
Vikings and Caleb Williams,
and JJ McCarthy
and JJ McCarthy. Oh my God,
debut.
we'll see what happens on that. I have to be quite interested.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be fun to watch. I hope for a Monday night game. There's certainly a lot of talent on the field on both sides, both offenses. Um, JJ coming off the injury and missing all of last season, and the Bears essentially scrapping their offense, at least getting rid of Sam Darnold and handing the keys to the Ferrari over to JJ. So it's going to be interesting to see him get out there and sling it. It seems like these young quarterbacks early in the season, what's best for them, or at least what offensive coordinators try to establish, is that they can throw the ball deep. Obviously, Minnesota can throw the ball deep, but we're definitely going to see JJ uncork a couple, probably early in the first half. Try and get the ball to Justin Jefferson and his other weapons there. And on the other side, Caleb Williams, year two. He's got a season under his belt. He didn't play terribly at all last year. Um, Not great, but rookie quarterback, second year, take another step forward. He's got some talent. I know Roma Dunze is on that offense, and they're going to look to connect, I'm sure. These young quarterbacks, if they can establish early that they can be accurate deep down the field, that allows them to progress. That allows them to open up the offense a little bit and do some more things. You know, Quarterback play is essential, obviously, in the National Football League. But once defense coordinators, start to learn what your inefficiencies are or your deficiencies, and deep accuracy is probably number one. If they know they can take that away or they don't have to worry about it, they can stack the box, stop the run, put more pressure on the quarterback, get to the quarterback. So it's important for those guys to throw the ball early tonight. We'll see if there's fireworks in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, as you notice, that I changed the color in the background, which is all I have to do is push a button. But I'm doing it in honor of your Jets green.
Not my Jets. Not
Um,
anymore.
but I have to tell you, I didn't see the entire game, but they played pretty well yesterday.
Well,
They
they
seemed to have
definitely
heart yesterday.
they definitely were playing for something, and you have to wonder after Aaron Rodgers' comments today or after the game yesterday. He said, I am happy to beat anything or anyone associated with the New York Jets. How much of that uh, translated to what we saw on the field, and if the Jets themselves, whether it was the guys in the locker room, the coaches, maybe the owner, I certainly don't put it past the owner, to want to go out and beat Aaron Rodgers. There seems to be some bad blood there. And the question from the reporter was about Aaron Glenn, essentially telling Rodgers, you're not our quarterback. It's not who we want. I don't blame a new head coach, especially a guy coming into the Jets organization, telling a 40-something year, I don't care that he's a Pro Bowler and a Hall of Famer and all that. The Jets were not built to win a championship, regardless of what their fans think about their roster. They have to move forward. They have to establish a new regime. And part of doing that is changing quarterbacks, or at least finding a new quarterback. And Rodgers has to at least understand that. And now, I wasn't in the room. Maybe it was personal. Maybe Aaron Glenn just doesn't like him. Maybe it goes back to when he played for the Packers. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. The quote I heard was, I heard you were told you didn't have enough left in the tank to be a pro quarterback anymore, and that's what they asked Aaron, and he goes, "Well, that's what I was told," and then he said, "Literally told." So, in other words, Aaron told him that they didn't think he had anything in it to be a NFL quarterback. And meanwhile, he played, by all accounts, he played the best game he's played since he left Green Bay.
Without question. I mean, that was a hell of a performance. It kind of reminds me of the question when someone says, if you could choose one quarterback for one game to win one this, whatever. I mean, obviously Pittsburgh is a well-coached, well-prepared team. Tomlin is a fierce competitor. So I think you have two guys that match their personalities. So it makes it more fun and easy to run that offense for them. It certainly takes a little pressure off Tomlin in terms of what they have on offense. He can concentrate on his specialty and leave it up to his quarterback and coordinator to,
Right.
matriculate the ball down the field, as they say. But yeah, week one always leaves you wondering. You always see something you don't expect. And is this team for real? Is that team for real? Is that team as bad as they thought we were? Are they worse? Are they better? So you got to get to weeks 3 or 4 when you start to find out who's for real. And then by midseason, I think you have that answer. So yesterday, good props to the Jets. They did play well. The running back had over 100 yards rushing. They fought hard. Fields seemed to have time to throw the ball. He made some mistakes, which I think are mistakes that can be overcome. He still has to progress as a quarterback, as we know. He hasn't really had, I won't say he hasn't had a fair shot, but the lack of continuity for him still exists. And it seemed like yesterday he was on the same page as his coordinator and the rest of the offense, and they were clicking, and they can get better. The Jet defense, I mean, you're playing against Aaron Rodgers. You're going to give up points. Are they 34, 33 points bad every week? I don't think they are. So, the Jets should be positive going into week 2, and they should build on what they have and not concentrate on, any mistakes that they made or little things. They can move forward. And hopefully they have something to build on here. I mean, we talked about it last week with the culture change and Aaron Glenn, and can he get these guys to buy in, and are they all on the same page, and will they continue to fight? And I think they will. If they were playing, just to beat Aaron Rodgers, and that's the best you're going to see this season, then they're in big trouble.
Right.
But the Steelers, the Steelers are going to be competitive. They have I won't say they have a soft schedule, but they have a winnable schedule in the first half. And they're going to get to Green Bay in week 8, probably with 5 or 6 wins, if not undefeated. And that'll be a test because that's another revenge game for Aaron Rodgers. They play the Packers in week 8.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem that, I don't know, this team has some systemic problems, right? That there is some kind of, before Aaron Glenn, because we know,
yeah,
it would seem there are all kinds of problems. I mean, you look at 2 quarterbacks they've had, Geno Smith and Darnold. Sam Darnold, who no one's saying are, Roger Staubach out there, but they've both had significant success in the National Football League.
Yeah, Darnold last year was like a complete and total surprise. He did have a year in San Francisco with Schottenheimer that I think probably made a big difference for him in his career. And then he got a chance to play in Minnesota, and he took full advantage of it. They were a 12, 13 win team last year. Um, so he may be now past that part of his early stage of his career where he's falling in sync now with the speed of the game, and he's made them all the mistakes he's going to make, and he's going to be better, and maybe that's the level of play he can produce every week. Um, you know, Minnesota had tremendous talent last year. I mean, they were arguably one of the best teams in the National Football League. I think they had a tremendous letdown in the playoffs, and it seemed like same old Sam Darnold. So, but that's his first playoff game. That's his first, you know, foray into the postseason. So he can still build and grow and get better, which it could scare you if he's progressing now and getting even better. You know, what does the future hold for him? Geno Smith bounced around. I think Geno's gotten past uh, the youth and inexperience part that a lot of times you don't see quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, somebody like a Johnny Manziel get past just being a clown. Not saying Geno's a clown, just that they're just, when he got punched in the face in the Jet locker room, and there was a lot of cloud and uh, uncertainty about who he was, his character, even coming out of West Virginia. Um, could he play in the cold weather? Could he do this? Could he do that? I think he's now sh- righted the ship and he's on course. And,
Right.
last year he had a lot of success throwing to his tight end. He's in a whole new situation this year. Um, and, as far as those two coming from the Jets organization are concerned, I think it proves that there's more going on behind the scenes in uh, Florham Park, whatever they call that place, which is just an ode to Woody Johnson. Uh, their organization needs to be cleaned out from top to bottom to get rid of whatever that systemic problem is. Because you saw it in the video when Belichick and Parcells went back to the stadium and they just completely skipped. They didn't even want any part of going in the Jet locker room to reminisce about their time with the Jets. And they were successful. I know they didn't win a Super Bowl and then Belichick left immediately, but they didn't even want to go over it. I mean, they were so disgusted with it, it seemed. And, talking to former NFL coaches, it's likened to Sean Payton going to the Saints. When he got to the Saints facilities, he knew right away what had to change. And that's why I was hammering the point of when he became available that I thought the Jets had to go get him because he's a culture changer. Look what he's doing in Denver. I mean, they're gonna be a good team for a while. He's turned the course of the franchise. I mean, I'm not saying they're gonna win a Super Bowl, but he's a coach that proved he could do it.
Yeah, but
And
he bit the bullet there in Denver pretty hard and made some decisions that I think the media in New York wouldn't have let it happen and would have gotten the reaction um, from the owner, and he would have done something stupid like he always does.
the owner is very much manipulated by the media. They know how to push his buttons. I think that's why Rex was so good for the Jets when he was here because he deflected. He took it all on, and you know I don't expect Sean Payton to do that or expect that he would do that in New York. But that's why I kind of take the New York media with a grain of salt. Everybody says they're so tough. I think they're just whiny and bitchy.
It's
Just
amazing that the Jets both had successful coaches chase them to try to get the job this year, which includes Rex, who went over and made a phone call, which includes Belichick, who called and went over there, and who knows who else tried to get back in there, and it would seem, you know, and this is just me from looking from a novice from the outside, it would seem that ownership doesn't want a person that may challenge them in the media, and ownership's not going to win that challenge. And
uh,
they may win the fight, they may win the war, but they're not going to win the fight.
yeah, Jerry Jones is probably the perfect example of that. Some of his coaching hirings. I remember when he hired was it Callahan, and there was another one either before or right after that. I mean They have egos. These are billionaires. They want to be prime time. Look at somebody like Steve Ballmer in the NBA. These guys think that they're on the field. They think that they can make decisions. They think that because they're billionaires that they can control every facet of the organization and win games, which is it defies logic in my opinion. If you have a coach that is good, you got to let him coach. Let him coach. Let the players play and stay out of it. If you know you have a direction you want your team to go, you believe in a certain player or you don't believe in a player, and you think he's bad for your locker room. I mean, you're still the owners. You do whatever you want, bring guys in, get guys out. But ultimately, I think we've seen where the coaches that are allowed to coach, the coaches that are allowed to instill their program, and again, Sean Payton changed the culture in New Orleans. I mean, they were just a terrible franchise, and the owner wanted to win, and he brought in Sean Payton at a time when other franchises, including the New York Jets, he's too young, he's too raw, he's too green. He turned over the whole franchise to Sean Payton, and he won them a Super Bowl.
Right.
So again, Belichick, same thing, right? I mean, they gave him what he wanted in New England, and he hadn't had much success before, but here he is, 20 years later. Guy won 6 Super Bowls. I mean, it is what it is. So the proof is in the pudding. Coaches have to coach. If you hire a guy to coach your team, you have to trust him. You can't meddle with that. You can't hire a guy to fit your piece. You have to let him do his thing. Either you love his personality or you don't. And you let him coach. Players want to play for coaches that are in control. Players want to play for coaches that can win them games and make them superstars. At the end, it's all about money. So, these billionaire owners, they can just cycle through coaches and, you know, they don't, I don't think they care one way or the other about winning. I think it's really more about their ego.
Could be. Um, you can't have Tom Brady as a partner and not care about winning.
Well, yeah, yeah. I mean, that makes a difference too. Sure, for sure. Tom's a different breed altogether. He just demands success from himself, and he doesn't take the little things for granted. I mean, you hear his interviews about only getting 2 reps with the practice squad, or only getting 2 reps as a freshman at Michigan, and taking those things very seriously and hyping the guys up and going 100%. you know that's what winners do. A lot of times these guys come from the bottom and fight their way to the top, and they don't take anything for granted. And other players, I think, see that and resonates with them, and they become, leaders among men.
Yeah. So we're talking about old quarterbacks for the Jets. I have to say we have to mention old quarterbacks for the Giants. It would seem when you talk about I can't help thinking about other people that played for the Giants when I think about what happened yesterday. Now, by all accounts, Miami was a total and absolute collapse yesterday.
Oh, what a
I know
disaster.
ESPN does some kind of rating thing where they rate teams on performances from 1 to 100. And Miami's effort yesterday was 1.9 on a scale from 1 to 100.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. There's probably things going on in Miami under the radar that maybe we don't know about. I picked them to win last week, thinking that the Colts were a disaster, and it was a complete opposite.
Right.
Um, Tua Tua looked like he was still concussed yesterday in that game. He made some bad throws, some bad reads. Um, you know, uh, you have to wonder. I mean, they did give him that huge contract, which I'm not rooting against the guy. I perfectly honest, I never really liked him as a quarterback. I thought it was just kind of fool's gold in the beginning. But after sustaining those concussions, uh, it breaks your heart to see that guy collapse on the field and stumble back to the sideline. And they were talking about his career being over. And you don't want to see that for a young player. You don't want to see that for anybody, especially when you consider what the long term effects of that might be. And the Dolphins seem to just ignore that. Um, and I want to believe that they think he's the future and he's great and he's all these things. But I think they kind of forced a square peg in a round hole here, and they're trying to justify that contract now. And if the way he played yesterday is indicative of how he's going to play for the rest of the season, they're in big trouble.
But I have to say that it's beyond him. The entire team looked ill prepared. The
Which is
entire
unusual.
team, and yeah, unusual, but
But I think that was across the NFL. I mean, these guys don't play in preseason games, and you don't know anymore if they're practicing or just going through the motions. Their practice time is limited because the CBA and the injuries, and they can't practice all day, and they only have so many hours a week that they can practice, hours a day. It's not the same NFL, and it shows if you don't maximize your practice time. Clearly, you can't just have this laissez-faire attitude that our players are going to play and they'll show up and they'll be fine. They've clearly shifted now because guys just don't play uh, in the preseason, and they expect these guys to go out and perform week one at the top of their game and be ready to go. And there were few teams yesterday that looked like they were prepared to play week one and are ready for an entire season.
well, speaking about Miami, you can't do that without speaking about Baltimore and the performance by their quarterback.
I think I owe them an apology after what I said last week. Yeah, they took advantage of Miami's inefficiency on defense. Uh, to their credit, their offensive line played tremendous, and I think that alone is enough. I mean, my mother could have stood back there yesterday throwing the ball, and that's not a knock on Daniel Jones at all. He had time to throw, whereas for the last 5 seasons, he was basically running for his life at times. Nobody could protect him. He took a lot of sacks. Yesterday, he looked like a completely different guy. Yesterday, he looked like a first round draft pick.
So let's just, for argument's sake, say that's true. Say that this wasn't a fluke and the kid's a quarterback and could play. Now, he's learned a lot, and he was in Minnesota for a year, and I saw an interview with him today, and he acknowledged that he learned a lot playing in a backup role. But isn't this the same thing we said about Saquon Barkley? Isn't this the same thing that we said? Here's a guy, he's not reaching his potential. He goes to another team that has an amazing offensive line, and we all know that Saquon is a generational player, right? Because that's already happened.
He does things on the field that nobody else has
I
done
mean,
before. So
even
yes,
just on Thursday night, he was fantastic.
yeah,
Um,
and he's selfless. I
that's
mean, you
right,
just don't find that in superstars. You really don't.
especially running backs.
Especially running backs, and especially running backs in today's game where they're not like they were when we were kids.
So you have to really scratch your head about the Giants. You scratch about the ownership. I mean, you scratch about. I think the coach didn't have the Giants prepared this week either. I have questions about his ability to prepare that team. Not that I don't have questions about their abilities on the whole, but I
I,
don't know.
I
I didn't see things that anyone that gave me hope. I saw hope in the Jets, but of course I have faith in Aaron Glenn.
yeah, I think that it's deeper with the Giants because of what I witnessed on Hard Knocks. I don't think it's the coach. I think Dable is a good coach. I think it's the general manager. They have not solidified the problems that they have on offensive line. That was clear and evident yesterday. They were in that game late in the first half, and I think it was that goal line. They had an opportunity in the red zone. They got a penalty that gave them an extra set of downs, and they couldn't score a touchdown. That could be on the coach. you've got enough talent on the field, or you got to score there. Russell Wilson did not look good. He looked terrible, but in that situation, he just looked very unathletic and, like he was not making the correct reads. He looked, foolish, in fact. So to have to settle for 3 points there, you know, when we talked about that game last week, you know, you took the 6 points or gave the 6 points to the Giants. You were right. I thought 6 points is a lot on the, it's a lot of points in football, and that game was close. But the Giants seem to be unconditioned. Like they can't finish a game. Um, Certainly the offensive line play. They made the statement this week that Russell Wilson's going to play. If the offensive line is going to continue to play like that, they can't put their number one quarterback back there.
Correct. That's always been the
You
problem.
you can't get him. I mean, it's the same old thing. Um, Ironically, it's the Giants, not the Jets. But they have to. If you bring in all this talent and then you fix your offensive line, fine. But you got rid of Saquon. You got rid of who was the receiver before that? Why can't I think of his name with the blonde hair? Oh my God. He went to the Rams and won a Super Bowl. Uh
That's
God,
all
I
right.
can't believe I can't forget his
It'll
forget his
come
name.
up.
Yeah. Um, you know, you're you're losing talent at skill positions. You're letting it walk out the door, and you haven't done anything to elevate the talent that's on your roster. And if your offensive line is garbage, or you won't address it, or you think you could just throw five warm bodies out there and you know run a football team, uh, expect to score, or go get what you think is a top tier quarterback and throw him out there and throw him to the wolves. Oh, he'll learn. He's not going to learn anything if he's running for his life. He's not going to learn anything if they can't block. He's not going to learn anything if you can't run the football to help protect him. And that's a big problem. I think it's also an NFL problem. I think you see it a lot with teams because I think the analytics of football and the salary cap and all that plays a part in guys at those positions playing a long time and guys being available to play deep um, into their careers. It's a systemic issue maybe, but with the Giants, yeah, that to see both teams lose quarterbacks to go play elsewhere and have success. The Jets, you could say three now with Aaron Rodgers, um, but Daniel Jones, he'd shown signs of being somebody who could play, but it was never consistent because the Giants' offensive line was never consistent protecting him or running the football. And it's the same old thing for the Giants. So they've got to fix that. And if they don't fix it, I don't know how they're going to fix it. I mean, the season started. I don't know if they got somebody hiding somewhere on the practice squad or if their coaches have a fix for it. If it was just, we weren't prepared because we didn't play these guys in the preseason, there's going to be excuses, but those excuses are not going to last very long. And you can't afford to just throw games away at the front end of the season. You have to be ready to go. And all of those things are factors: practice time, preseason game time. You got to be ready to go from day one. And the Giants were not.
They really need somebody, both of them, and probably every team in the NFL. Some probably may have them. People that recruit offensive linemen that go to colleges and specialize in offensive linemen and nothing else, and pay them a lot of money if they're successful. Who cares? Whatever you pay them is insignificant to the money you make on national television.
Oh yeah, I mean that's part of it too, right? It's not sexy to pay an offensive lineman a lot of money if he's good. Remember when Steve Hutchinson got that huge contract from Minnesota, and people were, oh, it's a lot of money to give an offensive lineman, but the guy was great. He deserved it. Look at Penei Sewell right now in Detroit. I mean, that was another guy the Jets probably should have drafted and didn't.
Right.
But I mean, last night he had his hands full with Parsons, but he's the best offensive tackle in the game. You got to pay guys like that. I mean, the flip side of that is guys like that stay in this league as long as they used to. So that's a problem. Um, I don't. There's people out there a lot smarter than me to figure out the pay scale, but you know, it's a problem. Yeah, I mean, I offensive line is the center of the universe for NFL football.
It always
If
has
your
been.
offensive line is good, your team should be good. You'll know if you have a good offensive line if your quarterback stinks or not. They will give you the read on the entire team. So, to have guys at positions to look for talent, coaches that go out, scouts. I mean, there's enough consumable information on the internet alone
Absolutely.
and on Saturdays and Sundays that you and I could probably sift through every offensive line in the country, every offensive lineman, and tell you this guy's good, this guy's no good, this guy's huge, this guy's fast, this guy's slow. It's all on film. The tape doesn't lie. Nothing can beat the eyeball test. Period.
And
And
you could travel all over the country and go to these places and watch them live and talk to their coaches. There's no, you NFL people that draft, you can talk to anybody. There's no
yeah,
prohibition.
there isn't. And the coaching network, it's a fraternity that
Right.
will, they love their players, but they're going to give you an honest evaluation no matter what. If the kid, you know, perfect example, and it's really more about defensive, but just to show you, the Jets drafted Vernon Golson years ago from Ohio State because he had one good game against Michigan. The film showed you that on the play that he made, Jake Long, who was a Pro Bowl offensive lineman,
Right.
took the wrong step. He went left instead of going right, or he went right instead of left, and Golston blew up the play. That play let the Jets send Tannenbaum out to Ohio State with two coaches to look at this guy's pro day. The two coaches looked at each other and said, "Why are we here?" The coach from Ohio State called his buddy, told him, "Don't bother coming here. The kid's a clarinet player. He only wants to be in the band. We just found a warm body and put pads on him, and he doesn't even like football." Tannenbaum turns around and says, "Isn't this great?" After watching the video and seeing the kid run, and it's mind-boggling. So that's why, in this case, I think the Giants general manager is really more to blame for this than the coach, because it's like Parcells said: if you want me to cook the meal, you got to let me pick the vegetables, and or pick the ingredients, whatever. And seeing Joe Shane with his feet up on the desk, on the phone with Saquon Barkley, just so matter of factly tell the greatest running back of this generation, "Yeah, we're gonna let you go do whatever." So that's that. That, to me, I would have fired him on the spot. Instead, the owner walks in and goes, "Well, I hope he doesn't go to the Eagles." You should have flown to his house and knocked on his door and said, "We're not letting you go." That's how you handle a player like that. The backup punter, the guy on the practice squad, third string offensive tackle, you don't have to go to his house. Look him in the eye. Saquon, you got to go do that. If he's not going to do that with Saquon, he's not going to do it with anybody else. So, what trust can you have in this general manager to identify talent and bring talent in to fix what's wrong? If he's just letting all the talent, Odell Beckham, that was his name. If you're letting all this talent go, why even, what are you doing here? So it's got to be frustrating for Daboll. It has to be. I don't know what their relationship is like personally, but Daboll's got to be losing his mind if this guy is going to allow talent to walk like that. I just,
Well, think about it. You have a player that played for the Giants, had a good year, not an amazing year, but a good year, better than average year with the Giants. And then he goes to a team that actually has an offensive line, and he has not just a generational season. He
he could have broke the
arguably
all-time
has.
rushing
He
record.
could have broken the all-time rushing record. He just chose not to.
Chose not to. which is one of the most that and I think the single game record just one of the most unselfish things I've ever witnessed on a football field. I know there's the only thing that I could think of that's more selfless is Ronnie Lott cutting off his finger to go back in the game. So, I don't think that uh, this is a good sign. I wonder if, and I know I talk about it all the time, how much does analytics play in his decision making? Is this an analytics GM and his theory is we don't need an offensive line. We just need guys to hit those target points that we're looking for, like the general manager from Cleveland said, or assistant GM said last week. You can't win games like that. You can't justify that on a
Yeah.
football field. It just doesn't work.
Players are in football. It's a team, right? You don't win unless the team plays. You don't. The offensive line. I mean, you remember what's his name? Was it Emmitt Smith used to buy Rolex watches for the
For his offensive lineman.
linemen, and give them
Sure,
all those gifts at the end of the year. He wasn't
sure.
stupid, and
These guys know.
he's one of the greatest running backs of all time.
Offensive line is so important. I mean, you have to have such a cohesive unit to be good. You know, I I can't. They do all the dirty work. They're never going to be on Sports Center highlight reels, and they know that. They're never going to be invited to all these chic parties and look at me and have, the supermodel girlfriends. And I know, but they're not that type of breed of guy. That's not what they're in it for. These are men. These are grown men that have hands the size of polar bears. It's not hard to identify them. To to go to go into a season and think, yeah, we're not gonna we're not gonna worry about that. We have what we need. I just it's starting to look and smell like analytics to me. It's like I'm waiting for when the Yankees made the statement strikeouts don't matter, talking about offense. Then they go out and hire, they sign a pitcher for $36 million a year because he's got a high spin rate, which translates to more strikeouts. It justifies logic. And I'm wondering if the analytics of today are like, we don't really need to have a good offensive lineman as long as we have XYZ in position and a quarterback that can hit these target points that we're looking for and the data points that suggest he can be good. You can't be good without an offensive line, period. You don't win Super Bowls without an offensive line.
And that's why the tight ends have become so important, because you could use them at times to pick up blocking when you have that big, tough tight end, and it's important, and it's so important that you have that flexibility. And
You
just
had to
because
be able to block back then as a tight end. It was having a set of hands was kind of like automatic. Like if you had hands, great. But it was like every tight end had hands. But could they block? If they can't do the little things, they can't play. And now
so talking
different
about talking about teams, the game last night,
Baltimore
Baltimore
and
and
Buffalo.
Buffalo. Now, arguably two of the best teams in the NFL.
Yeah. I
And
went to bed with 7 minutes left. I
oh,
brushed my teeth. I cleaned my CPAP. I filled the tank. I laid down. I put on some pajamas, and then all of a sudden, I got a text. Wow.
that was me, right? So,
You, Mike, somebody else.
so, so I had fallen asleep and woken up. So I was pretty with it when I was watching. I fell asleep for a couple of minutes, but I remember my girlfriend was sitting there and we were watching the game. And I wouldn't say she's a big football fan, and I was like huffing and puffing. And she was like, "What's the matter?" I'm like, "There's 5 or 6 minutes left." I'm like, and this team's going through the motions, Buffalo. They can win this game.
Yeah.
They have everything they need to win this game. They may need a little luck. They may need to hold them. They may whatever. And it happens. So what did we learn? What are we saying after the game? You see this great comeback. Now, there's two things that both need to happen for them to win that game last night. One is the officials had to find a second left on the clock to leave them be able to kick the field goals during the end of the first half, second end of the second quarter, first
In the
half.
second quarter, yeah.
That allows them to kick a field goal for 3 points. The other thing is, after playing one of the sickest games as a running back I've seen in some times, you needed Henry to fumble. And I mean, some of his runs, he had one, and I don't remember what part of the game it was. I want to say it was in the third quarter. He's running, and I don't remember which position he played, but a defensive back goes to tackle him, and he puts out his hand and swats him away like a fly.
He looked like a runaway horse on a racetrack. I mean, he's just running people over.
And the announcer says, by the way, guys, that guy's 6'4", 210 pounds. So he wasn't like he was a 150-pound weakling.
Wasn't just some little defensive back corner.
He is amazing. But
Utah State.
I mean, is this the first time, the third time, the fifth time that we see this Baltimore team loaded with talent, arguably one of the best cornerbacks who's won the MVP 2 or 3 times, right?
Should have won it probably more than that. Yeah, I think, yeah.
And they don't seem to play 60 minutes. And the best coach in football.
They kind of remind me, like, their offense looks like a video game. I mean, they just, press the button, snap the ball, score a touchdown. They're just up. They just go right up the field at will anytime they want.
But how many times did they seem like they give up at the end of the game, that they don't play 60 minutes? It happens.
So we talked about that, preseason when we made our picks, and, until somebody comes along to beat the Chiefs, who's it going to be? And I think we both said it was, Baltimore or Buffalo's got to take that next step. My concern for Baltimore was that it's not the same Baltimore defense that we're used to. And the concern for Buffalo was, can Josh Allen elevate himself, to take that next step and command this offense into a deep playoff run towards the Super Bowl. Clearly last night, and Buffalo, they weren't just down. I mean, they had made a decision earlier to go for 2, which I absolutely detest 2-point conversions. I argue with my friends all the time. They always say the book says you have to go for 2. I don't care what the book says. I want the point. I'll worry about going for 2 at the end of the game when the game is on the line, and I'll have my team prepared for that. Right. They had to get, because they missed, they had to play catch up. And they did, to their credit. They won the game. And I think that's a testament to their quarterback not giving up, who scolded the fans who left after the game, said maybe have a little more faith next time, which I thought was great. As far as, Baltimore is concerned, that's a problem. You look like world beaters. I mean, you're shaming these guys on their own field. You're marching down the field. Your running back is just, nobody can tackle him. Your quarterback is out of his mind. Even Zay Flowers played well last night. I mean, they were clicking the whole game. But that Baltimore defense, just like you said, it just seemed like they took their foot off the gas and took for granted that they had this lead and they were just going to win. And
you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of when the Giants used to go into prevent 100 years ago. And they would get beat every time.
Every time.
And it seems like their defense said, well, there's only a few minutes left. We just got to play, we'll play conservative defense. We won't get beat long. And and we're going to win this game because the clock's going to run out. Well,
Yeah,
guess
and
what? It ran out, all right.
I'm sorry I didn't watch the last 8 minutes or 7 minutes of the game because that's when all the fun happened. But it certainly seemed like it was well at hand when I went to bed. It was 40-20 or whatever it was at that point, 20 something. Um, I did not. I did hear one comment today about the rule changes affecting how the end of that game played out. I don't know if you noticed that, but you have to wonder again. You know, uh, and not taking anything away from the Bills or suggesting anything. Just that,
You mean what rule change that you couldn't challenge? Or what
yeah,
was
there
the
was
other?
I forgot which one it was. They said this. The comment. I turned the television on and they had talked about the Bills getting the ball back, and they said as a result of the rule change, this allowed Buffalo to go on and score after the. I get maybe it was a fumble. I don't know. I don't know what it was. But I don't know if you noticed anything during the game
Well,
during that time.
part of the rule change was that you can't challenge in the final 2 minutes of the game. You can't challenge. And I know we went over the rule changes. I don't remember that rule change,
Yeah,
but that you can't do challenges in the final 2 minutes, which it didn't
it's
really.
automatic, right? It's an automatic
Yeah, but
look.
there wasn't anything. I don't remember anything significant with the rule changes
I'll
that
have to
made
go
it.
back
I
and
know
watch.
it was mentioned that had something to do with going out of bounds, um, and whatever. And there has been talk in the NFL committees about putting a tenth of a second clock on the NFL clock. So when there's seconds left, it isn't just 1 or 0, but can be 0.5,
Like the NBA.
like the NBA.
Yeah.
And it clearly at the halftime when they talked about that, they went back and looked, and he went out of bounds. There was still a 1 on the clock, and that made him put back. And Buffalo ran into the locker room. They were like, "We're out of here,"
Huh.
and that was interesting. And the officials, to their credit, made them come back out.
Okay.
And I don't know, there were a few things, but at the end of the day, everybody had the same rules. Everybody had the same thing. And Buffalo just kept, let's do it. Let's do it. They never let it get away from them. They
No,
never
they
let it
competed the whole
out of
game.
control.
Yeah.
And they constantly, so then you have, and they did things that I wouldn't have agreed with in a long time. They were like on the 30-yard line, and I don't know, there was a penalty or whatever it was. It was first down. They had plenty of time to go for a touchdown, but they didn't. They chose, their strategy was, we're going to kick a field goal, but we're going to burn out the clock at the same time. So they ran and ran and ran and short passes and whatever. And they got down, they ran it, it went out of bounds, short passes out of bounds. And they got it back within a few yards, less than 10, I would say, of field goal range and burnt the clock. And in running that time, Baltimore had 3 timeouts left. And
So they were
because they
waiting to get the ball
ran the
back.
football, Baltimore had to burn their timeouts to create some time from them to get back. And once Baltimore had burned through their timeouts, they burned through the rest of the time. So when they kicked the field goal, there wouldn't be any time left for anybody.
Yeah, no time left.
And that
So
was a great. I would have done it. I would have been like, score. Who cares? Go
yeah,
in. But they were smart. They played it. That's
they
why you
played it
just.
right. They didn't want to give the ball back and score too early and give the ball back to Lamar
And the
to
best
the
thing
end of the
is
game.
Prater, the kicker, Prater. He was in Arizona on Thursday. He took a red eye back. They had just hired him to kick.
Yeah.
He's been kicking for whatever. Everybody,
Yeah.
every big game, I think
He's been
we've
around a
seen
while,
a
Prater.
long
Yeah.
time, and he's been in the big
Yeah.
kicks. They bring him in. They told him he was jet lagged, and the the conversation was he didn't even know the play names of the players on the team. He just got there on Thursday. I mean, it's not like he went around and introduced himself.
Yeah,
They're all
I'm the
doing their
kicker.
thing because they're playing, right? We're going into the first game of the year. They're concentrated on their thing. You think they went around, hey, I'm like some old guy because beard was all gray when they interviewed him after the game. And when they interviewed Josh Allen and they asked him about it, he said, I didn't really talk to him. I didn't meet him. I met him before the game. And he came up to me and says, when the time comes, I'll be there for you. That's what he told Josh Allen before the game.
Sounds like a love song.
I'll be there for you. And sure as hell, everybody was like, oh my God, this guy's had 10 hours sleep in the
This,
past 3 days.
so yeah, well, I mean, that's a funny. This is one of those stories where you're gonna look back on the ESPN 30 for 30 of the Super Bowl Buffalo Bills story, or the E60 on the kicker or whatever. The Bills very much looked like, a team that was fighting to get and elevate themselves to a championship level. Even though I didn't watch the last 7 minutes of the game, the Ravens looked like they were kind of looking ahead, almost like they took their offense for granted. Like, all right, who's next? Let's
They
get out
took
of
their
here. Let's take this 40 points and go home.
first
And they
time in
didn't finish the game.
first time in history a team scored 40 points and lost the game. First time in NFL history. I mean, you don't expect it from a coach like that.
No, listen.
But
He's a good coach. He's won a Super Bowl. You know, um, I think there's the AFC after yesterday. You have that game, two offenses scoring 40 points. You have the Chiefs breaking down and looking like, almost. Well, I don't want to curse, but they look terrible. Then you have the Chargers, who are they for real? We don't know. We really don't know. I mean, they played great. They got a good coach. The quarterback looked fantastic. And then you have the Steelers, who have veteran all-time quarterback, the longest tenured coach, Super Bowl champion, and they brought in all these free agents. I think yesterday I heard something like 29 free agents, and I don't know, they have all these Pro Bowlers all over the field. So that loss for the Ravens is a terrible loss from the way they lost, who they lost to, where it puts them in the standings, what it's going to mean later in the season. I mean, that is something where you're going to say, are they going to have to go on the road now and play Buffalo in the championship game if they get there? Are they going to have to take a backseat? Are they going to be playing catch up? Are they going to be a game behind Pittsburgh all year? That's a big loss. You have to have those are the games you have to win those games. And to just go flat and mail it in, or if they were playing prevent, or just not know how to finish, that is very uncharacteristic of a Ravens football team, regardless of who the coach is. But that it's Harbaugh and you have all this offensive talent and you're right there and you've had great, tremendous regular season success, but you can't win in the playoffs. This is that's a big loss. Buffalo loses that game and they score 38 points. Let's say the guy missed a field goal, whatever the score was at the time. They fought back. They look good. They can
you'd
run the
be
ball.
you'd be
They're
saying the
playing
same thing about Buffalo. That here they are again. They come down to the end and they can't finish it. The reality
well
is,
in the
it's the
regular
first.
season. Lamar's had success until he was successful yesterday. He played a great game. You can't knock him. He
Right.
just didn't get the ball back at the end, apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah, but
So,
they're going to battle. But they now
right.
Buffalo after week one has the upper hand for sure.
So, I know we did lousy with our picks, and I know it's too early in the week to make picks, but I'd like to talk about. So, one other thing I want to talk about, and we spoke a lot about it in our prior conversations, and that is Dallas showing up Thursday night.
Oh man.
I
Well,
mean, they really showed up. I thought they had heart. I thought it was interesting that Jerry Jones says we're one strong defensive player away from winning the Super Bowl or whatever the comment
Yeah,
was like that.
you traded him to Green Bay.
And we have to note that the player he traded had a real. Everybody talk about it being hurt. He had a great game, by all accounts, and he had a sack at the opportune time that turned the tide of the game. So I don't know what to say, but I did want to mention that at all. I do have a.
I think that's another indicator game. Philly won the game, but it was ugly. Jalen Hurts proved that he could, he can play in that upper echelon tier of quarterback talent. He's good. He's got a lot of talent. I know people like to take away he can't do this or he can't do that or he's too small or he's too that. He's a winner. The bottom line, he's a winner. Dallas played well, not well enough to win. I don't think you can talk about Dallas without talking about Green Bay, but Dallas, I think on the outside looking at this game itself, are the Eagles as good as we thought they were coming back off the Super Bowl? Is their defense Super Bowl defense? And then are the Cowboys ready to take a next step? Or did they look good because the Eagles aren't as good as we thought they were? So I think we have to give that a couple weeks to progress.
I think it has to play out. You have to worry about injuries and team plays. I think there's a lot of things.
I think the Green Bay
1 week that's not even over yet, and it's going to have to play out.
And to have all these tremendous matchups in week 1, I mean, Detroit gets Micah, who had a tremendous game yesterday.
Right.
I mean, he at one time knocked Penei Sewell right on his ass, and I saw the game film, and I was like, wow, this guy was fired up to play yesterday. But like we talked about last week, what impact was that going to have on this team, and who was going to step up? They traded their run stopper to Dallas in that trade to get Mika, and their interior defensive lineman played very well yesterday.
Right.
And you saw something on the Packers side, at least the defensive side of the football, not knocking their offense. They looked like a team that was ready to take the next step. They are fired up. They were swarming to the football. You could just see that because Mika's presence on the field was so dominant that other guys were able to play their game, and it looked like the beginning of he's going to make this defense better. So that's something to keep an eye on. Plus, they're playing the Detroit Lions, who have a ton of offensive weapons. They have one of the best offensive lines in football, the best offensive tackle in football.
Right.
And that was a fairly low-scoring game, all things considered. I didn't expect that game to be a shootout. You have Detroit, losing both of their coordinators. So there's new coordinators in town now, same head coach. But Green Bay, that was kind of a statement from day one. I think they punched Detroit in the mouth there. Detroit will probably come back, and it'll look different when they're in Detroit, and they're going to be okay. But the Packers have taken another step, it seems.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard this story, and not to change the subject to more comedic things, that during this Cincinnati-Cleveland game, that someone threw a sex toy onto the field. Do you hear the story?
I haven't heard that. No.
So one of the officials saw it. Apparently, it was bright yellow, and kicked it to the sideline. Then security grabbed it somewhere along the line and put it away. It accidentally, nobody knew what it was. So when they put the camera on it, they were a little shocked to see what it actually was. But apparently, and this is the twist to the thing, that over the past weeks, it's happened 3 times in the WNBA, where people have thrown this object, yellow, bright yellow onto the court.
Well, I heard about the green one.
Right. Or yellow, green, whatever you want to call it. And supposedly it's related to some cryptocurrency that was just released. And because of the hype of it all, the cryptocurrency from when it was released has increased value threefold.
Oh my goodness.
I mean,
do you know the name of the crypto?
No, I don't.
Certainly nothing I own.
I wasn't going to mention it, even if I did know it. I do know it, but I'm not even going to mention it. And it's like, I mean, it's amazing how brilliant people are to try to. You have to admit, it's pretty. It's bizarre. It's not something we would do ourselves, but what it's done to increase the value, and it's a pennies kind of thing. But 3 times is still 3 times, right?
Listen, you never know in the crypto world what's going to make something boom or bust.
Right.
And, there are people that kind of understand it way smarter than me, I guess. But, we've seen it before with crypto where if the right guy gets a hold of it or says something or mentions a buzzword, the value of the coin jumps. In this case, I'm not sure why a sex toy would increase the value of a cryptocurrency, but
it has some relationship to it. I don't know about the name of it. I don't know what, but I read an article in like Sports Illustrated or one of the ESPN boards or whatever it is. It was fascinating. So I wanted to just, I know we're not going to do picks because it's too early in the week, but I'd like to mention a couple of matchups that seem to feed in well from the year. So the first one is, of course, Thursday night. You have Washington, who really showed up against the Giants, playing Green Bay. Thursday night.
Where is the game?
I believe it's in Green Bay.
Thursday night games are just, they're so, I don't like the Thursday night games. These guys don't get enough practice as it is, and on Thursday night games you see it, and it boggles my mind how the NFL continues to push it, knowing it's a bad product. It doesn't matter who the teams are. It's not like the old school Monday night games where Monday night was a showdown between 2 potential playoff teams, division rivals, a cross conference matchup that could determine, someone's seeding. 2 great teams, 2 teams that are going to be fun to watch.
Right.
But
I think
on a short week,
you have to organize it with a bye week. That's what you need to do.
I agree. I mean, and there's no reason why you can't. But the NFL, again, this comes down to greed and money, and they know they're going to get the ratings. They know they're going to have it. They don't care what the product looks like. To have it on a bye, following a bye week or before the bye week, whatever, what have you, that's the logical thing to do.
So this is a conference game. You would think that Green Bay's defense wants to destroy Washington. Washington played real well against the Giants.
I mean, they knocked them out of the playoffs.
So
Washington is good. Washington, they're you're looking for their quarterback to take the next step. He looked decent on against the Giants. I don't think he looked great. He's there's probably going to be a little regression there, I would imagine. But he's a tremendous talent. So, but on a short week, I mean, their quarterback is young too, Green Bay. But their defense, if their defense plays anywhere, even half of what they played yesterday, Washington's going to be in trouble.
So I think that's an interesting game. I think Baltimore coming off their loss and then going to play at home with Cleveland, whose defense destroyed Cincinnati last week. I think Baltimore is going to see the defense that they want to be that are not. And I think that's going to be a bell ringer for them. They're going to realize that they're not as good as they think they are defensively.
Baltimore or Cleveland?
Baltimore.
Baltimore is going to find out that they're not as good as they think they are.
Defensively.
Well, that certainly would open a lot of eyes. If they lose that game, that's a terrible start for them to open the season that way. Uh, I
So
still
there's
think their offense is equipped enough to handle the Cleveland Browns defense.
so there's a lot of good games this week again. And plus, you have the Giants in Dallas at Dallas, and Dallas wants to make a statement, and Giants are just the team to do it against.
Yeah, certainly.
You have Cincinnati, you have Chicago and Detroit. Now Chicago hasn't played yet, but Detroit's looking to spring back, and that's always a grudge match. Those two teams.
Yeah, that's always a hard fought game. You know, you got you have a seasoned vet, I guess, in Jared Goff, and then you have Caleb Williams coming in. Yeah, I mean that's a division game. That's an important game very early in the season. That gives you a cushion if you win that game. Gives you a little bit of an upper hand.
So those are all 1 o'clock games, surprisingly enough, along with New England and Miami.
That might be the ugliest football game you've ever seen. That might be uglier
Correct.
than when they played in the rain on Thursday night a few years back, and there was like one pass in the whole game. New England lost this weekend um, to the Raiders. Uh, they, I think, I think their fan base was probably the most shocked. Um, the Raiders are well coached, but New England and Miami is that now looks like it's they're playing for second place in the division. But if they're as bad as they looked yesterday, the Jets might surprise some people and finish second in that division this year.
Okay. So the two other games I'd like to mention is next week. The other is Seattle and Pittsburgh. That's always a tough match too.
Is that where you know what the home team has such a huge advantage in that game?
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean to come from one coast to the other and play in a hostile environment. Uh, the home team is typically at an advantage, but in a situation like that, when you're coming across the country, now Seattle, that's what they do, right? They know they have to go cross country a few times a year, and they play in the farthest place to play on the planet. So um, we'll see. I mean, their new quarterback, you know, um, interesting matchup for sure. It's a cross conference matchup, so should be interesting. I mean, that's a good gauge for the Steelers to see if they're for real, because that's going to be a tough game for them for sure.
So here's the most interesting one, especially of the 4 o'clock games, and that is Philadelphia and Kansas City
Super Bowl rematch,
at Kansas
revenge
City.
game, revenge game for the Chiefs at Kansas City. They're looking to bounce back. They have to prove that you know last week was a fluke, or you know,
And the Super Bowl was a fluke.
yeah. I really don't think the Super Bowl was a fluke, but if you're Kansas City, you kind of have to sell that
So they have a
idea.
the good chance of being 0-2, which they
It's a very
haven't
good chance.
been in I don't even know how many years.
It's been a while. I mean, they're usually good, but they've been good the last 5 or 6 years. They've been to the Super Bowl 3 times, 4 times. I mean, you know, they'll be prepared to play. I'm sticking with that mantra. Andy Reid still being Andy Reid.
Right.
Um, I doubt the Eagles will not be prepared to play. Sirianni has got such an ego. Uh, that's going to be a fun game to watch for sure. I mean, it's another cross conference game, potential Super Bowl rematch, all that. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, Kansas City. Even if at 0, I mean, nobody wants to go 0-2. You don't want to start the season 0-2. But to lose to Philly, it's not the worst way to start an 0-2 season if that's what happens. And if you're Philly, I think, you know, given that you didn't play your best game against Dallas, you have to come out and beat Kansas City. You have to this. I think there might actually be more pressure on the Eagles than Kansas City to win this game.
So here is their schedule, Kansas City. So look, because you'd kind of think they're going to lose, right? At this point, if you had to pick them, you'd pick Philadelphia, right? So
I would pick the Chiefs at home, to be honest. I mean, regardless of the points, I think I would still pick the Chiefs at home.
I don't know what the points are. I don't have that yet. But so
It's not a knock on Philly. It's
so
like
they
I
play
said
the
earlier.
Eagles, then they play the Giants. Imagine then what are they doing? The tour of the
NFC East. That's the
and then they play the Ravens, and then the Jaguars, then the Lions, then the Raiders, then the Commanders. So they're crisscrossing across the. Then the Bills, then the Broncos, then the Colts, which is Thanksgiving. Then the Cowboys, then the Texans. You think they have a tough schedule? Chargers, Titans, Broncos on Christmas.
Hmm.
And then
that
the
is not an easy schedule.
Raiders on January 4th.
So we'll find out for real on Sunday. I mean, if they beat the Eagles, then we could say, well, maybe the Eagles aren't who we thought they were. And I think Dallas's indicator. Dallas, any division game is always going to look uglier than you think it might play out from the start, regardless of how good or bad the teams are. Division rivals always find a way to scrap and fight and stay in games. I mean, the Giant game, wasn't great, but they were in that game in the first half, and they had some plays that, could have went differently. I'm not saying they should have won the game, just that the division games are a lot tougher than playing outside the division. It's always a closer matchup. So we'll see. I mean, if you come away from the game and the Chiefs win, then you think, all right, they righted the ship. You think maybe, all right, maybe Philly isn't as good. Maybe Dallas. What if the Giants win on Sunday? If the Giants come and beat Dallas, regardless of the points, regardless if they beat them by 3 or by 30, it doesn't matter. If the Giants beat Dallas, then you have to wonder how good really is Philly. So a lot of football left to be played for sure.
Absolutely.
Very interesting matchups in these first 2 weeks.
Absolutely. And I think we should end it there, unless there's something else you want to rip into.
No, I'm good. I it's nice to be back in swing of football for sure.
Absolutely.
I haven't.
Next week we can start talking about postseason baseball. I think a little bit.
Yeah, that should be interesting. After our discussion last week about whether or not the seeds have changed at all, that'll be fun. It should be an exciting. Let's hope it's an exciting fall.
Let's hope.
For baseball and football.
Absolutely. So thank you again, Justin.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. As usual, pleasure. It was a pleasure. I really enjoy this a lot.
I'm not sure we had a lot of live listeners, but as you know, we've had a good number of people that have watched our podcast after it was live in hundreds and hundreds. We were pretty impressed, to be honest, and thankful. And we've also had a lot of subscribes. So please subscribe if you're listening to us on YouTube, watching us live, or listening to our recorded show on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. And if you're listening to us on all the major audio podcasts, please like and subscribe and continue to listen. On both, you're able to leave on both audio and YouTube. You're able to leave comments and send messages if there's something you want us to talk about. It's just something you want to give us a hard time about, because all my other podcasts, everybody gives me a hard time about everything, and I'm more than welcome to address it. So
taking all comers.
taking all comers. So thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for listening. Justin, I'll talk to you in
Thank
a
you.
minute. All right.
Talk to you in a minute.